Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here in the One Conscious Love Network. I'm here with Ginny. Ginny and I met in her group, which is awesome, and wanted to invite her to come into this group and say hi to all of you. So, Ginny, would you please introduce yourself? Tell everyone who you are and what you do, please.
Well, hi, everybody. I go by Reverend Coach Ginny. And just to start off with, Reverend for me at this point in my life just means that I revere, honor, and respect my higher self. Um, as you know, we've all been to the school of hard knocks where we didn't trust ourselves and had that intuition or that inner guidance, and we didn't listen to it. So I'm no different than anybody else had to go to school of hard knocks. And now it's like, if I don't have a clear green light, let's go do it, then I don't do it. I'm the founder of the Women's Empower Network. As Melanie was saying, it was a delight to have you introduce yourself in our group. And I also do a series called The Pearls of Wisdom by Ginny. I've been around the sun a few times now and taken lots of courses, had lots of spiritual experiences. So I don't really consider myself a coach. I feel like more of a mentor or a teacher because I believe every individual has their own innate intelligence. And it's just learning to trust it and listen to it and then take action on it.
Beautifully said. I love that. I love how it's become so much more over time, right? And that it's evolved for you, the meaning of it all. And so, how do people work with you? What is it that you offer for services? And what do you provide for them?
But, it's funny. About a year ago, we were talking earlier, I started our group, the Women's Empower Network. And I remember about 3 weeks in, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than me. And then it was like, oh shit, I'm a leader. What the hell does that mean? you know? So I kind of stepped into a role that I feel it was like divine providence, that it was where I was meant to go and meant to be. So I have this, I mean, we all feel it now, um, that when you help one woman, we all rise. And so this is like tapping more into our feminine divine energy, tapping into living from the heart, living from inclusiveness. Like lack is a man made concept. We don't compete. There's it takes all of us. They always say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes all of us. I don't care if you have 10 women in a room, they're all the same type of coach. Each one of them is going to be unique and they'll be energetically attracted to different clients. So I love that you can just relax and just know that everything is unfolding as it needs to. There was another thought I had, but it kind of went away. Um, But that's my main focus. And like I said, I'm also, as we talked about earlier, doing a multi-author book right now. It's an annual event. It's called The Power Within, Finding Strength, Voice, and Vision. Because after interviewing over 200 women now, there's a collective consciousness globally that's been around for hundreds of years. And we're right on the precipice of changing the paradigm, that the dynamics, the way that we think about life, the way we think about ourselves, the rules that we've made society wise or personally or with our families, um, because you can't push against something you don't want and change it, because what you're experiencing, was already created in the past. So it's kind of like trying to push water upstream. I mean, it's just kind of it's moot, you know. Um, and so really, it's creating the world that you want, one person at a time, living it, being it, and it makes the old one obsolete. And that's the fastest way to create the change. So that's why I love all these different groups of women that I've come to meet, like you, Melanie, and all these other social media groups that are helping us own that inner strength and power and voice that's been there, but has maybe been quieted through no fault of your own, just the environment you might have been raised in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you're talking about the paradigm shift because obviously it is coming. And I think 2025, 2026 is a big year for that, a big year of transformation. Can you talk to us a little bit further about that? What does it mean to you? What are you seeing in your conversation and your interaction with people that are kind of telltales of that? And how do you foresee it? What is your vision around that?
Well, I think it's each of us give up our story. I mean, we all have stories. I remember when I was 22 years old, I was in my apartment. It was my first apartment by myself, and this random thought popped in my head. And it was kind of like, well, if I don't think like my mother thinks, then I won't be like my mother. She had a lot of tragedies in her life, and it caused her some mental illness and just self-hatred and criticism. It was really sad. So when I was 22, I just had this like, aha moment. It's like, oh, well, everything in my head was from the environment that I grew up in and the things that my parents and my families and my teachers said to me. And I was like, okay, well then what are my thoughts? And at 22 years old, I'm like, I had no clue. It'd probably be another couple decades where it's like, oh, I get to choose. I get to choose. And anything that happens to us, it's not the events that define our lives, it's the stories that we make up about it. So if the story you're telling isn't serving you, like, if you feel like you were victimized when you were young, and I don't think there's a human being alive that doesn't experience it in one form or another at some degree, some way more than others. But you get to a place where it doesn't serve you. But what happens is you're like, who am I without this story? You get so identified by this story that you keep telling that story is the very thing that's keeping you from stepping into who you were meant to be, your purpose, um, the beautiful love. We were talking about love connection. I had this beautiful experience. I call it a waking meditation, where I was looking at an olive tree out my kitchen window, and I was just gazing at it softly and thinking about the oneness that we're all one. And in that moment, I had this instantaneous understanding that we came from love and we're going to return to love, and that anything we experience in between is insignificant in the eyes of your creator, whatever that is. So I remember laughing and crying and just recognizing all the weight I was carrying around so unnecessarily, all the shame, self-judgment, the stories. And it was kind of like, oh, I don't need to do this. I can just relax. I can just put this down. There is no judgment. There is no right and wrong. We're just having this human experience. Um, and I would love for other women to really know that that's at your core. That's what you are. You are love, and it starts with self-love. I used to be as guilty as anybody else of putting myself down and wasn't smart enough, wasn't pretty enough, yada yada. And I made a decision one day that I just it was a decision. It really is. I am not doing this anymore. And I'm going to allow myself, as I said in the very beginning about Reverend, about listening to spirit. And if there's any hesitation now, I don't. Even if I don't understand it, I don't do it. And I only do those things that inspire me. And and I have rituals that put me in that energetic space and prepares me for the day so that I'm starting off on the right foot, and I'm loving it. Just so, I mean, I live where I want to live. I do the things I want to do. I have the people I want to have in my life, and it's it's beautiful. And of course, as you know, that it's the challenges that really help us with the personal growth. But I enjoy those that space of peace in between.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of my professors always talks about the pattern that we're on. You're talking a little bit about that when you're developing as an adult, and then you basically form this personality based on your thoughts, and then your thoughts are can be quite destructive and judging and a lot of that negativity. And then you create this personality, you become that person. And then how do you separate yourself from that? And I find a lot of people really are challenged with that. You're saying, it's through self-love. But how do you take someone that has like that really strong voice in their head right now, the judge, the negative kind of voice going on 24/7, down to maybe, a place where you're able to notice it because it's becoming more rare that this voice is coming on, right? So how do you transform into that for yourself? What was it like to go from being that developed adult that has been trained and formed by its experiences to becoming truly connected with your divinity within, but also with the universe and what it has to offer to you?
I still remember the choice and what it was. Louise Hay wrote a book, a simple book called "You Can Heal Your Life," and she taught about mirror work. And I remember that being the very first thing because I got sick and tired of listening to all the self condemnation that I was saying to myself. And it took 3 weeks, pretty much just about 3 weeks. So the first thing I did was stop saying anything negative about myself to other people out loud. But then, of course, it got louder in my head. And then every time, every day, it's like two, three, four times a day, I would gaze into my eyes and I would say, I love you. I deeply and completely love and accept myself just the way that I am and just the way that I am not. And at first it was like hokey and like it was superficial, it had there was no emotion. It was just I was going through the you know, what do you say? I was just going through the exercise of it. But I kept it up and I kept it up. And after 3 weeks, it was about 3 weeks where I'm like, I don't hear those negative stories in my head anymore. And they were starting to be more positive. And I had a whole slew of different things that I started saying, but I started off, it was free, it was simple, it was easy. It took commitment, it took discipline to keep doing it. But I tell you what, just that was that was profound.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. And I think for those of you that are needing a little more encouragement to try this particular technique, I think that it's good to remind yourself of catching this voice. Like, what are those words that you're saying to yourself? And would you ever say that to your loved ones, to your pets? Most of us wouldn't even say that to our dogs. How are we saying that to ourselves and opening that heart and that loving and nurturing culture? So, one question that I always love to ask everyone is how do you choose that conscious love every day for you? What does that mean in your world?
Well, that's just it. I choose it. I decide. And I have this trademark. It goes, you are the source, you decide. So every day you get to choose. So I just choose it. And like I said earlier, I have my practices where I meditate and not long. I do only maybe 15 minutes. I have certain kind of music. Personally, I found a new genre of music that doesn't have words. Because there's a lot of studies about, like classical music's like a higher vibrational than rap, let's say, or hard metal, heavy metal rock. And so I found on Pandora, I found these great new modern, it was kind of like classical crossover, where it was like modern songs, but it was played with traditional, you know, instruments like the violin and cellos and piano. But because I'm all about the beat, the feeling that it's giving me. And so I listen to those that give me that upbeat, energetic feeling. And as soon as I hear it, because I created the pattern, it's like flipping a switch and I get right into that space.
That's beautiful. That's a really great trick for everyone watching for sure. I know many will enjoy that. Any other shares or anything you'd like to say to everyone before we wrap up today?
You are so much more than who you've been conditioned to be or taught to be. You know, if you can look at little children or remember yourself as a little child who laughed and played with abandonment. You, you know, we're born creators and then we're conditioned out of it. And but that's we can't stop. That's what we are. And so whatever it is that you're putting out there, whether it's a negative story or a positive story, you know, that is creating a vibrational field that's going to attract things towards you. So you can kind of look at your environment and it just takes a little shift. Just start having gratitude for your breakfast. I every day that I get in a shower with hot water, I'm like, oh gosh, thank you for hot water, you know? And just living in deep appreciation for everything that you do have. And then there'll be more and more things come into your life to appreciate um, the good. It'll just that because that's what you'll be expanding.
That's beautiful. Definitely resonating those positive vibes to attract more of that positivity. It's been shown time and time again by science that that is a fact. So thank you for sharing that. And everything that you shared today is so valuable. I know everyone is going to enjoy it. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for watching. And please reach out and connect with Jini. She's just a wonderful soul, and you're going to have a great conversation, that's guaranteed, and so much more. So I really encourage you to do that. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Melanie. It's been a pleasure.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.